Okay, welcome to the September 12th, 2018 gathering of the minds of alumni and current religion and social justice majors at Agnes Scott College in Decatur, Georgia. Please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Judith Jones, class of 2016. I was a women's studies and religion and social justice double major, ex-law school student, current nanny.
Solid. I'm Lucia Holsether. I'm a class of 2011, double major in religious studies and sociology and anthropology. I went to divinity school at Harvard after I graduated from Agnes Scott, and I'm currently a fifth-year PhD student at Yale in the American Religious History program.
That's awesome. My name is Emma Fisher. I am a senior. I will be graduating in December, and I'm a religion and social justice major.
My name is Avalon Bonley. I will be graduating in May. I'm a senior, and I'm double majoring in history and religion and social justice, and looking for gap year opportunities.
My name is Lauren Bodemos. I'm a junior, religious studies and women's studies double major.
Awesome.
All right, you have before you the vision statement of the Department of Religious Studies that was started in the mid-1990s as a way to come to some agreement about the journey we're taking together into democratic departmental structure and process. So if I could get you to talk a little bit, alumni, about your experience of the vision statement, why you kept it going for this new group that's here, and why the new group, we just revised it again, why we think this is important, and what does it mean for us to have this and to seek to live into it.
That's a lot to talk about. Let's go. So, how different is this vision statement from the vision statement you guys had? I think is a place to start. No, maybe.
I think it's pretty similar to ours.
I couldn't tell you, I mean, it's only been a few years, but I couldn't tell you the explicit differences.
One of the things that really stood out to me when I came to Agnes Scott and saw the vision statement in religious studies was the focus on mentoring, mentoring, and also co-mentoring. It seemed like a place, and was a place in my experience, where mentoring wasn't just happening from the top, from the faculty to the students, but the students mentored each other. Students could mentor faculty. There were all kinds of directions in which learning and teaching and growing were happening, and I think that created a sort of a really sort of dense, kind of connected tissue in the department, where people were bound together and able to pursue their interests and their goals and their intellectual projects in a number of ways. And because everyone was learning from everybody else and committed to the growth of everybody else, and because we had this document to reference as a thing that was calling us into a sort of better form of ourselves, it meant that the possibilities for taking risks together and the possibilities for what kinds of work, either within college or post-college, like that there was just a wider range of imaginative possibility around that, and a sort of broader expanse of what could be valued as a contribution. And I really appreciated that, because for me it made education a place that didn't involve the same kinds of rigid hierarchies that it might in another kind of classroom or another kind of university or another kind of department. And I think that the vision statement began to be kind of a catalyst for that commitment. Definitely.
I definitely agree. I think, especially thinking about hierarchy and just a completely different power dynamic in religious studies than we both double majored. Not that women's studies doesn't have that breakdown, but they didn't, not to no fault of their own, just of not having full-time faculty to do that kind of mentoring and like a strong base of women's studies students to do that kind of co-mentoring. There wasn't that even despite like a more broken down or egalitarian power dynamic. And I think just having a vision statement still to this day is just accountability.
Oh, absolutely,
And I
absolutely.
mean, you can always go back to this if there is trouble between student and student or, you know, student professor. And I think, like say you mentioned going beyond Agnes Scott, I think having this kind of vision statement that is truly a vision and not reality, but a hope of reality, I think does prepare you for a situation that is completely opposite, and knowing that your worth isn't still based off of what you can produce in the classroom.
Yeah.
I shopped around at a lot of different departments my first year trying to figure out where I wanted to land. And I think a big part of what drew me to this major was the department community. 'Cause I thought this department had like a tighter knit environment and more like congeniality even between like professors you'll never have a class with than any other department I've seen.
Yeah, I remember like my whole first year, like towards the end of my first year, I had figured out that I wanted to be like a religious studies kid, but I was intimidated. I was like so terrified of like going to a department meeting because I was like, what the heck? Like I've never heard of this, da da da. And then I went to my first department meeting and like we talked about the vision statement and I was like, oh, like this is what this community is. And like watching that, like that, the way that people interacted and hearing about like the communal values was really, really like essential in me like losing that fear and becoming part of the department. And then like my dad is a professor at he's retired now, was a professor at a huge state school. And when I told him that not only was I going to department meetings, but I was going to lead a department meeting, he was like, what? This is completely unheard of, you know, but this, you know, it's something cool. And I really like, I absolutely agree. I think the vision statement is 110% accountability. And it's like, we're never going to be perfect and we're never going to be like succeeding at all these things simultaneously, but it's a very clear definition of who we want to be and how we want to run things. And I think that's really important.
Sure. Listening to all of you guys, two things come to mind. First, when I came to Agnes as a first year, did you guys have safe Agnes Scott? Not safe, I'll get to that later, but Scotty sibling?
Yeah, I had a Scotty sibling.
Yeah, so Emma was actually my Scotty sibling.
Yes.
And just sort of like brought me into the department and welcomed me so fully. And just showed me how open this department is and how kind and nurturing it can be to everyone. And then also SAS. I don't think that our vision statement would be anything if we didn't have SAS. What was SAS like when you went here?
A hodgepodge, honestly. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, I mean, you remember, I mean, it was difficult to get people to do it or people to take it seriously. And that wasn't that long ago. I don't know if it's improved, but okay, that's it.
Yeah. Significantly. Do you wanna
Yeah.
say the numbers? How many
Yeah.
departments, how many classes, how many reps?
Can I
Say what it
remember?
is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's also
Sure.
important.
Yeah, I just sort of jumped into SAS. So SAS, Safe Agnes Scott Students, is an on-campus organization that started 20-ish years ago in the religious studies department because there was a faculty member who was, for lack of
25 years ago.
25 years ago.
15.
15!
Very cool years.
It's
Wow.
very, you know, but also it's very clear we are not the math department.
It's a flaw. Anyway, 15 years ago, because there was a professor who was aggressive, for lack of a better word, is that fair? And so SAS started as a way to sort of get students to have more of a voice in the classroom and sort of level the playing field between professors and students. So how it works is a student will go into the class at the beginning of the year to sort of go over the syllabus and set a standard for the classroom and allow students to ask questions or express their concerns, and then they go in again at midterms to do a midterm evaluation of the professor in the form of a class discussion. Is that clear to everyone? Yeah. Cool. So SAS really grew a lot this year. It sort of died out, and now we are back and booming. We're in, 7 departments?
I think it was like 9.
9 departments working in like almost 20 classes.
Yeah. 13 reps.
They're
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's so great.
yeah.
We're even we were in some STEM classes.
We're in one STEM class.
No. What
Yeah.
class?
We're in
Physics?
physics. Yes.
Yeah.
Dr. Ackerman.
And then first year classes. We're in some
Okay.
first year classes.
That's good.
Yeah.
Women Studies 100, 101.
Women's Studies 100, a global class, and
A leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So kind of
German.
Huh?
I'm doing a German
Oh, yes,
class.
German class.
Very nice. So kind of like how I adopted you and like brought you into the department. Like I had that experience also with your class, with you and Selena and Rachel. Like that was very much. But I think SAS, for me, I would love to see SAS kind of do this not just for religious studies, but like, because like when you come from high school and you're like, I have to ask like how. Can I go to the bathroom? Can I get some water? Can I breathe? Can I exist? You know, and you come to Agnes and it's like, argue with your professors, debate your professors, you know, obviously respectfully. Some professors. And like obviously respectfully, like I think having someone to come into class and say, hey, things are different here. This is how we do it. We are more on an equal playing field, you know, like I think that's really something.
Yeah,
And I think it's awesome.
It gives students a space to feel uncomfortable in a productive way and not have to worry about not feeling safe, which I think is the best part of SAS.
Yeah.
Well, could you talk a little more about the power dynamics? Because there's definitely a power imbalance. I mean, to level the playing field would be ideal,
But
but
impossible.
It's impossible,
I
yeah.
write letters, I give grades as a professor, and there's a certain system here, institutional structure, that we hit against. So talk about that power and how having not just the vision statement as a marker for us and a conversation partner, but also SAS, what that's doing to help us realize that mutual accountability and the existence of this power imbalance.
Yeah, I think so when I was here between 2007 and 2011, when I came into the department, I had a similar experience to all of you, that students who were further along in the program brought me in and really mentored me. And SAS at that point was only in religious studies, but it was in all of the religious studies classes. There were a couple of reps for every class. It was a really vibrant organization. And then dramatizing what SAS knew and SAS said in all of its documents, which is that we're trying to level the playing field, but the reason but it's an ongoing effort, kind of like the vision statement. It's something that we're constantly having to live up to. It's always the professor's choice because they still have the institutionally sort of awarded sovereignty over their own classroom. It's their choice whether or not they're going to let SAS into the classroom or agree to engage with SAS or with their students. And so there was a year when folks were on leave and we had all of a sudden we had very, very little support for SAS in the department. And luckily, there was a core group of students who knew what it was like to have SAS, and there were students even outside of religious studies who would run into problems in classes that had suddenly closed down the SAS's access to the class, who would email SAS reps anyway and say, hey, can we talk to you about this thing that's happening? We want to problem solve together, even if you don't have a sanctioned position. And I think that might have been, I don't know if that's, I think SAS goes through waves of sometimes there will be a lot of excitement and participation and sometimes it will dip. But sometimes those waves map onto when faculty who tend to be really excited about SAS as a tool for educating themselves, educating their students, about what does it mean to be in college, what does it mean to read a syllabus, what does it mean to participate. When those faculty are gone, SAS has a hard time, and it's an uphill battle because the power dynamic still exists, and it's an attempt to correct, but it's not, it doesn't change the fundamental power structure that we live in unless there's an ongoing commitment that we keep returning to every time we're in a classroom. So that's what I would say about the power dynamic and connect it to the longevity of the organization.
I think with SAS, it sort of kicks it off on the first week to like really make it clear that the professor is not infallible. Like it has you go through the syllabus, which is like practically like a holy text when you like first get to college. You think like
It's unquestionable.
It's unquestionable, and then SAS comes in, and you realize like, oh, there are mistakes in here. There are things that don't make sense.
There are
like,
missing things.
Yeah.
And typos.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that like if you didn't have someone like sit you down and say like, hey, we need to look at this as a group, you probably would have never noticed.
Or I would never, without, like, as, I think my first SAS experience was, like, as a sophomore, like, I had never really questioned a syllabus before. I was just like, all right, this is the syllabus, these are the rules, this is how it is. And then I had a SAS rep who was like, all right, we're gonna look at this and, like, think critically about it. What do you think? And I was like, what do you mean, what do I think? Like, I don't get to think about this. Like, it's just, this is just how it is. And they were like, no, you get to, like, let's talk about it. And it was really, like, the power dynamic is absolutely still there, but we're putting chinks in the armor. You know, we're breaking down the little, you can see that it's not solid. You can see that there are holes in it, that it's becoming translucent, you know, and obviously, like, it's still there, you know, because they're, like, professors at the end of the day, like you said, have the choice to allow SAS in the class or not. They have this institutional back power. But I think for me, even the idea that students also have power and can affect change in a small way, even if you just like fix a typo or change something on the syllabus, like I feel like that's really empowering.
And I think it definitely, going back to students having power, I mean, it definitely is a clear, even if the power balance never changes and people don't let SAS in, just other students in other departments knowing that this is my education, like I deserve respect and I deserve dignity in the classroom. You can't speak for me how, you know, whatever way. Like I can challenge your syllabus, I can challenge my grades, you know.
Yes.
I mean, it is my education in the end of the day. And I should know that I am empowered to push back when I know like people are being treated right in this room.
I think it can also kind of have like a ripple effect. Like if you've had an experience with SAS and you're maybe not in a class that doesn't have a SAS rep, like you said, you know what it's like. And then if someone's like, well, Judith can do that and challenge the existing thing, like why can't I do it? You know, because she's right. You know, and then it's like work together and it's a good time.
Here's a question for you all that I'm curious. So there was another wonderful religious studies alum named Amy Laurent, and we and some of you all may have done this, presented to different audiences about academic audiences of professors, what is SAS? Whether at Agnes Scott or elsewhere at a conference. And one of the sort of knee-jerk reactions that we would get, we got many knee-jerk reactions, but one of them was, well, there's this drift in education towards treating students like consumers, and the students are just so entitled, and they just want to boss professors around, and this isn't a Walmart where you just go to the store and pick out what you want on the shelves, and SAS seems to be creating that dynamic. What do you say to those people?
I hear you. I think in some educational circles there has absolutely, like, going back to my dad, like the way that my dad talks about the shifts in his school, you know, which is a state school with like 25 to 30,000 undergrads. The way that his experience has changed is that they are treating students more like a consumer. What I would say, and like this is a little weird, it's less consumer, more like cooperative. We all, so like I don't want to just get a product and be like, all right, you have to give this to me the way that I want. It's not Burger King. I'm not gonna get it my way. It's like this is a place where we are all invested, and you know, there's no like king of like the classroom or whatever. It's like we're all here together, you know, and it's just because you say something doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna happen. Like I can say, oh, I don't agree with this policy. That doesn't mean it's gonna change, but I'm allowed to have a voice, and we're allowed to work together. Like I think it's much less about like we want a thing. It's about an experience, and the focus of it is really having everybody have a stake in what's going on in the classroom. What do you guys think?
I've never had anyone ask that specific question or raise that issue, but most professors I've talked to about SAS have had some problems with it. The most common one I hear is with the specific language that we're trying to create a democratic classroom space, which, as we've discussed, isn't possible, really, because there always will be, whether we like it or not, that power imbalance. We can reach for it and aspire to be something close to it, you know. I've had, I don't know, 4 professors probably say something along those lines, and I think that's reasonable. So for them, we adjust the language to just trying to make a more approachable space instead of democratic space. Because I think that still captures the essence of what SAS is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also think, I mean, like you said, my mother teaches as a professor as well, and I mean, yes, technically we are consumers. Like, this is a capitalist model of how teaching should
We're
be.
paying for a service.
But we're not like just supposed to regurgitate things and spit them back. Like, that's not the point of liberal arts. But then I still feel like I would say yes. Like, technically we are consumers because this is the way university models work these days. But then to your point, then to counter that, then I'd also say I don't think we're consumers because these aren't skills that are only bound in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
You should know that you have the power to negotiate with your boss, to negotiate in your grad program. Like, you can apply this to anywhere you go. And that's probably scary for some people to know that they're empowered and they're going to have democratic space and not accept the syllabus and not accept this is my job agreement and not accept this is my grad program. Just to know that anywhere they go they could push back, I think is maybe scary for people.
Yeah.
That you're
Yeah.
creating students that are consciously aware and demanding.
And have
just that,
agency.
And have agency, I think.
The biggest concern I've had talking with professors is like if only a couple students are engaged, then the direction of the class sort of de facto goes with the students who are engaged.
Yeah.
How do you guys think about that issue?
That's a great question.
When I've gotten that concern, I asked the professor back, why are only a couple of students engaged in your classroom? And what can we collectively do to increase or change the kinds of engagement? What kind of engagement is occurring with that might not be legible or visible to you? Perhaps students are engaged. Perhaps they're leaving the classroom and having side conversations about how pissed off they are about the homophobic person sitting behind them. Like, perhaps I think it's really difficult to spend however many hours a week in a classroom without being engaged in some way. So everything is engagement. So then how do you shift the engagement? And I think that one way to do that is to invite people into a conversation about what are the grounds, one of the questions that I really liked to ask students on midterm evaluations when I was a SAS rep, and now that I ask to my own students that I teach in classes at Yale, is describe the learning environment of this course. Not what's working, what's not working, but just describe it. Give me some examples of what fits with your description, and that way the professor and the students can know what's working and what's not working and why. So if they're engaged, why are they engaged? Is it because the professor is a really charismatic person entertaining them? That's not great engagement in the classroom. If they're disengaged, are they disengaged because they're refusing a premise that needs to be brought to light in a discussion with a SAS rep? Disengagement could be a really good and principled thing in some settings, and engagement could be a really ugly thing in some settings. So that's I deconstruct the question and put it back on the naysayer.
I think that's a solid. That's a great response.
I like the nuance of talking about engagement.
Yeah. Because I do think that engagement in this context has a really specific positive connotation, and I hadn't considered just because you're engaged doesn't mean you're learning, you know. And just because you're not engaged, that has power to it also. That now when you said that, I was like, oh, I have a friend who's not engaging with the reading because they're all dead white men, and it's an African studies class, and she's like, what's the
What?
Yeah, actually, I think it's an African studies class. I think it's race and gender or something, and she was like, she's like, why are we reading them? Like, no, and I'm like, that has power.
Masculinity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not like 100% sure on that, but she's not engaging with them for a solid reason.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know what class it is, but it's because they're all dead white men. And she's like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And that has power to it, absolutely.
Well, the future of SAS, we're wanting to connect or house it in the Center for Teaching and Learning,
Yes.
and perhaps extend the model to something like Carleton College has with their student observer fellows, where they, like a Center for Writing and Speaking tutor, are applied to and are assigned to classes for the entire semester as a sounding board and a participant and a conversation partner with faculty about pedagogical models and what's happening in the classroom. You want to
Yeah.
speak more to that, Lauren?
Yeah, so I had a meeting with Dr. Beth Hackett in the Women's Studies Department about SAS a couple weeks ago, and she brought up Carleton College's amazing model that they've been doing for decades. It would be so great to have SAS grow to this new level and be more of a, I don't know, pillar in the Agnes learning environment.
Is there do you know if there's an incentive for students to become an observer?
It might look good
It's
on their
paid.
resume.
They get
It's
paid.
It's paid.
That is an
Could we
excellent
do that,
incentive.
though?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's
So,
pros and cons with being institutionalized, right?
Yeah.
But we finally found, sort of an open window to help us see the future of
Yeah.
where this could go on, and faculty perhaps could sign up for different parts of it. Maybe the model of syllabus workshop and midterm evaluations, or having someone in the class, which I think would be fabulous, that you're reading pedagogical theory with and
I think-
engaging.
I think we could make it, and I don't know how popular this idea is going to be, but I think Summit offers a great opportunity for this because it's a leadership thing. And you could make it like an option for the leadership practice, which listen, institutionalization has its problems, but also if we want to be able to have, funding, if we want, maybe, I don't know.
I was thinking about that. I had not learned about the Carleton model, which I think is fabulous. And I think we learned from Carleton. Carleton could also learn from Agnes Scott. I think the solo, having the professor out of the classroom during the syllabus review, which I don't know if we've said entirely explicitly in this conversation yet, would kick the professor out of their room to do the midterm eval, the syllabus review. I think is really important. And then the observation adds another dynamic. I think about the Center for Writing and Speaking at Agnes Scott. I was a writing tutor, and were y'all writing tutors, speaking tutors?
I socialized on this exclusively.
Yeah, in the writing, yeah. So the one thing that I think is really wonderful about the Center for Writing and Speaking, at least when I was there, was that there's institutional support. It has institutional money. People are paid for the labor they do to give feedback to their peers. And Dr. Cousins is clear that Dr. Cousins is the director of this, or was at least when I was there, it continues to be. The director of the Center for Writing and Speaking is very clear that this is a student space. And so professors are not walking through the Writing Center because that would be a weird power dynamic. And so there's a meeting of writing tutors reading Writing Center theory every week, talking about it, coming up with our own research projects about Writing Center theory and practice. But in the Writing Center itself, faculty are not intervening in tutoring sessions. They're not even in the room. And so I can imagine, I think and I think Writing Centers have a whole long history of being spaces for kind of radicalism and edgy kinds of pedagogy. And I feel like a similar institutionalization doesn't have to be incorporation or co-optation in every single way. I can imagine a similar kind of model working for a teaching position like this.
Well, could we get back to our departmental journey and the road we're making by walking it? That is, as far as we know, other departments, we haven't found one that is doing quite this kind of thing where we share chairing meetings, we rotate students and faculty. Students, I think, do a better job than, or more prepared than faculty. You know, and having conversations about the curricular decisions we make, honor society, are we going to be a part of that, events that we have. But when I mention this to other faculty who are also, you know, deeply educated in the, you know, the pedagogical theory of Paulo Freire and others, there's a shock and a horror of, oh, well, how is that their responsibility? Or how can students make decisions about that? And I mean, just they can't get their heads around the model that we are doing. So why are we doing it, and what are we doing it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, why not just be normal? What higher education does.
I think, well, first of all, normal's overrated. Like, forget normal. Like, no. But I feel so much more engaged and active in my department because than my peers whose departments don't do this, because I feel like I have a stake in it. You know, like, I know that my voice is heard, and I know that I'm listened to, and of course I'm not always going to get my way because, you know, it's not the world of Emma Fisher, but, you know, it's, thanks. But, like, I feel invested, and I feel really part of a community, and I know that when we do these things, we do them together for everybody. It's not just professors saying, oh, this is what you're going to learn. Like, we had, at our last department meeting, we voted on what Kristen Sessions was going to teach, and it was because she was like, I would love to teach either of these things. What do you think the students want? You know, and we were like, wow, this class on death and dying, there's a huge, like, audience for that, and I think it's a perspective that otherwise isn't heard, and I think it's this perspective that's really important. And I think it gives people to care. It really does.
And students always have opinions on the decisions department.
Oh, always.
And like, the decisions virtually always affect students. And so, like, why not? Like, they're the people that are gonna, like, at least for the immediate future, likely be most directly affected by the policy changes.
I think you both are totally right. Also, what Judith said earlier was, I think, great as well.
Can you repeat it?
Yeah.
My memory's horrible.
Yeah. About how our department sort of gives us the opportunity to have, like, a real world lesson on how to be empowered as we move through our lives.
Because there's always the critique that, oh, this isn't the real world, Agnes isn't the real world. I'm like, no, this is. Like, these are, like, you need to be able to you need to be able to run a meeting. You need to be able to advocate for yourself. You need to be able to understand the power dynamics in a room and work with other people. And yeah.
I think we could ask, how did it become normal that students weren't involved in their own education? Perhaps, yeah.
Like, what are people afraid of? Do they think we're gonna, like, have we might have a riot, but, like, do they think that we're gonna, like, flip tables and, like, no, like, we want the best education possible. And I know that the teachers, the professors want to provide the best education. Like, our goals are the same. Why would we not work together?
I mean, this is a place to learn, and being able to chair a department meeting, being able to even be invited is just a learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not I mean, yes, it's radical, but I mean, down to it, you are learning that skill. And like you said, like, how would you know how to run a meeting? How would you know how to, coordinate all that without someone mentoring you? And I think it goes back to the vision statement, and there's another aspect of mentorship and seeing another student do it and the co-mentoring there.
Oh, I didn't think I could run a meeting until I saw Rachel Floyd do it. And then I was like, oh, huh.
Me with you.
Aw. I was like, oh, this can be done. Okay. Yeah.
I also think that, and we always say this, is this sort of, we're talking about how much students can learn in these leadership opportunities that SAS provides, and that the department, the democratic department model tries to enact. And I also think, and I say this from having been in SAS and having been in Agnes Scott's religious studies department, but now teaching my own classes at Yale, faculty learn a lot too from having students in leadership role, not even just leadership role sounds tokenizing, like in collaborative partnership with creating the departmental and classroom space. And so how do faculty know what students, what kinds of classes and interests and questions and problems they can best address in their classes? And that could be interesting. Well, like sharing in leadership. And I think Tina's right when she says that students often do a better job running department meetings than people whose job it is to run the department meetings, because there's a kind of there's an on the ground pulse. There's a sense that we're becoming leaders. We're going to do this really well, and we're just as invested as anyone else around this table, and are becoming the thing that we're becoming the thing that we're doing. Just like as we continue to move through it together, and you can't claim that if more than half of the department population is not in the room.
Yeah. I don't really see it. English. I also really, really feel that it goes back to engagement. Like when people feel heard, they're going to be more engaged. And I can't imagine any professor who doesn't want to engage students. And I know that students want to be engaged in the classroom, and this is the way to do it. Like, you know, when we talk about research questions, I'm like, well, what do so-and-so think about this? And have you asked them? You know, like, what do students want from the book? Well, have you asked them? You know, what classes should we offer? Well, let's ask, you know, and I really think it creates engagement.
And I think it's also really important that it's like in a broad, open environment, like our department meetings are. Like they're often in the Irvine and sent out in emails, because like there are always going to be like some people who like find a role of being engaged themselves, who say like, hey Tina, I really love to see a class on this, and then we can see if we can get some balls rolling. But if it's an open conversation, like it lets people who wouldn't have ever thought to knock on Tina's door to see if they can make some change happen.
And it generates ideas, absolutely. Because if I have an idea and I just talk to Tina, it's only Tina and I that are talking about it. But if you bring it up at the department meeting, there's like a ton of us, and we're all like, you know, and it makes the idea better than it could have been if only two people were working on it. Sharing is caring.
Well, when you come back from your 10-year reunion, what would you like to see the department look like?
I'd like it to be bigger.
Yeah.
I'd like it to be bigger. I'd like more students to be involved. I would like there to be more Jewish studies classes. Agnes has a teeny tiny Jewish population, but we're still here. And it's not just us who want to take the classes. And I'd like there to be a fellowship. I'd like there to be some sort of like legit not like, you know what I mean, so, like some sort of department run or authorized or whatever leadership thing for a junior or a senior to have an idea, have a project, and run with it with support.
I like that fellowship idea.
Thank you. It's not an original idea.
Like a fellowship in religion and social justice?
Yeah.
What a great title.
Right?
Yeah.
It could sort of like be like a designated person that could help lead student movements on campus. Like if you had someone who was like their fellowship position to like help work on the living wage,
That would be
there
great.
would be like so much more that we could
Absolutely.
get done than people who are drowning in homework.
Yeah. You know, lead student groups, work on research projects, you know.
Yeah.
If there's a question about like the history of something at Agnes Scott, they could do that, you know, or ethnographic research, or you know, just a passion project.
Not to be a terrible person. What's the difference between that vision and a 410?
They're paid.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they're paid. That's it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you want to say to each other, as, you know, only a few years separate you really? So what do you say to each other?
Thank you for making the department what it is.
Thank you. You guys are great. Thanks for it's so cool to see how there are vibes that continue across the generations of students that I could see anyone from the years above me coming in and being totally at home in this conversation and continuing to create this vision over the years. It's really moving and cool.
That's really nice to hear.
Yes, seriously.
It's also just because I saw y'all as first years, seeing y'all now. It's nice to see who y'all become.
And like, thank you for unconsciously being like role models. Like, even on your bad days, like legit, like seeing people succeed and then seeing people struggle that you have a relationship with is like, wow, okay. Even someone as amazing as Judith has bad days, you know, like it's really cool because as like a baby firstie, or as a sophomore or whatever, I got to see what y'all were doing and be like, whoa, someday I can present at SEEKSOR, you know, and all sorts of cool stuff like that. And I feel like our department is really, it's like, this is so cheesy and I'm just gonna apologize for this, but we're like a family, you know, and I didn't realize how like not typical that was until I was talking to my friends. I was like, yeah, I go to department meetings, we go to Tina's house every year, you know, we have like lasagna and roasted seniors, and they were like, what the hell are you talking about? And I was like, what are you know, like you don't get like adopted by upperclassmen and they don't show you their, like, no, it's.
Don't forget pearls.
Oh, and pearls! Yes.
And we're not wearing them. Oh
You put that
my.
on your resume?
Yes, we made, at the last department meeting, we made a thing. You know,
Yeah, the pearl.
award for excellence in religious studies.
Yeah.
I'm
my
gonna
resume.
put that on my resume.
Yes.
Jobs this year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we're at time, so last words.
Thank you, Tina.
Yeah,
Thank you all for being here. This is such a help for assessment and for posterity, and you know, to get the story on film.
Yale is next.
And we have Flat Frere.
Yeah.
Flat Agnes is something that Agnes Scott alumna and students take on journeys.
Take on their next adventure, whether it's
Yes.
Mount Kilimanjaro or your
Yeah.
local
Oh, it actually has words on the back
Oh,
of it.
thank you.
dog park.
And we have
Send them a photo.
invented Flat Frere since it is the 50th anniversary of Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and our department model is based on Freirean pedagogical theory. It's like, well, why we have working on democratic classrooms, why not have a democratic department and extend from there, right? So thank you all for being here.